There was a specific grant scheme from 2006 program, which was launched in 2008, focusing specifically on supporting the activities on civil dialogue in minority-related issues. And also currently the IPA TAXO project, the Technical Assistance to Civil Society, in some part, but not with focus, is supporting the civil dialogue or improvement of cooperation between civil society organizations and government. We have more focused projects in the context of Commission or IPA assistance on national level, such as the technical assistance to governments through providing expertise, improvement of legal framework, etc., in countries such as Bosnia and Herzegovina and Macedonia at the moment, and also has funding allocated on national level to capacity building of civil society organization in this area, such as in Albania, Bosnia, Croatia, and Serbia. We're talking about projects being implemented at the moment, not the ones being planned. While it might be too early to assess the impact, it's not really honest to assess the impact at the moment. But there are some lessons learned that we thought are important to be outlined. Again, in relation to the policy, or looking at benchmarks and looking how the governments are performing on civil dialogue benchmarks, so to speak. Also, in terms of funding, we find, or we can see that the Commission support at the moment is incoherent and it is scattered. It is not strategically focused. And it's sometimes not directly linked to the specific benchmark for the country and regional in general. And again, also to some of the findings that we have found on the ground. Based on all of that, we, in our policy paper, propose 10 recommendations. First, it's a general. We think that assistance, not just the Commission assistance, but any kind of assistance supporting the development and functioning of civil dialogue in our countries should follow 4 principles: coherence, effectiveness, ownership, and sustainability. Coherence between, especially here for the Commission, between the policy and benchmarks, so the policy tool that the Commission has at hand, which is specific for the Commission in comparison for the donors, with what is being funded. So there are 2 mechanisms at hand that the Commission can have, and I think better coherence and coordination between the policy pressure that we can exert, because we heard that one of the main problems with public authorities is the lack of political will and engagement, organization, and civil dialogue, and on the other hand, also what is being funded with the assistance. If the role of the Commission, the institution, is to monitor and find ways to push and help our governments to fulfill and become as soon as possible members of the EU, then the assistance should be strategically linked and focused on funding what is needed in order to do that. We also think that in this sense, we think that the assistance needs to be used effectively in supporting the local efforts already being dealt with on the ground or developed on the ground, not inventing new things or reinventing the wheel, so to speak, but also in terms of the modes of implementation being used, that local actors are involved in the whole process of developing and implementing in the project. And then sustainability, as the 4th principle, is a natural consequence. Secondly, as already mentioned, we think that it could be valuable not just for us, for local actors, but generally for the progress in fulfilling the enlargement benchmarks, that civil dialogue can be understood and should be understood as a horizontal policy measures directly linked to key areas in which our countries seem to be kind of failing and not performing so well, such as rule of law and anti-corruption, and maybe even explore the possibility of maybe making civil dialogue and civil society development a key area, which I think might be science fiction, but still, an interesting way to discuss it. Thirdly, we think that in terms of the policy and the monitoring or the assessments or the benchmark, the Commission should focus on 2 things: the implementation, where we have state frameworks, so where we have strategies and bilateral agreements, and where we don't have on their development. And then secondly, also on especially development, because we have seen that we don't have a lot of specific measures or bylaws in a lot of countries. 2 examples were mentioned, Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we think that the Commission should also very much focus on assessing how our countries are performing that, or should look at ways in how we can engage with the benchmarks to push or support development of such standards, such as minimum standards for consultation and improvement in access to public information. Fourthly, in terms of this IPA funding linked to the policy, again, we think that IPA support could be more coherent and more strategically used to fund the problems and challenges identified in the benchmark, or more concretely, to support implementation of existing state framework documents and mechanisms which have already the local ownership. So have already developed, not to reinvent the wheel and not to invent new things that are already happening. Secondly, to support capacity building and awareness raising of coordination mechanism and administration for implementation of state frameworks and specific bylaws. So implementation of the administration, so with the capacity of administration, but also then capacity building of civil society organization. As Tina mentioned, there is a great need to build capacity of civil society organization. So they are able to react, they're able to be involved, and they're also able to initiate advocacy and their involvement in policy decision making. And finally, what we think the Commission, especially on regional level, could do through IPA support to support synergies. Synergy initiatives for exchange of good practices and information between pre-accession countries as well as EU countries. Because if we can see, as we can see, the development in a lot of countries is happening simultaneously or with a couple of years different. So we think that there is a possibility to explore for synergies, for exchange, for peer learning, etc. Fifthly, again, national governments and local actors such as NGOs should have the main ownership of the intervention. Sixthly, we think that also what could help in this performance, similarly to the already mentioned, the need and the possibility for good regional synergy in this area that we see on regional level, local civil society organizations should strengthen regional and national cross-sectoral cooperation. Seventh, regional synergy of national governments should be identified, but also linked to existing intergovernmental cooperation forums, such as the Regional Cooperation Council. We will have a representative from the Council also speak today on this topic. Eighthly, we think that an indirect measure, which has been a bit identified in the Commission assessments, is development of financial sustainability. Because this brings independence and the ability to advocate and really be involved in the policy decision-making process. Ninthly, additionally, as we saw, the civil dialogue mechanism are not just linked to the government, and usually the elaborate processes and the engagement with the Commission is very much focused on looking at the executive and the government. But the civil dialogue also means involving other institutions, especially if we talk about the governments and democratization process. Here the Parliament also brings its role. So it is important that understanding the civil dialogue is broader in this sense. And lastly, a discussion that is always, and an argument that is always used in a lot of times against it by national government, that is very important to have in mind and to repeat that the value of citizens and CSO's contribution in the decision and policy making process is not about the representativity. Our value is not in the quantity, it's about the quality of arguments and solutions that we can bring to the table and to the policy decision making process. Our value and the value of civil society organizations is about correctly, it's about value and it's about expertise. Thank you.